In with what was mentioned in your exhibition notes about the moment when you heard bird song, which fed you some ideas for the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I got locked down in Bataan, uh, in a cove there, a beach cove. It was every morning there would be a barrage of, it's not even bird song, like they're hooting and they're tweeting and whatnot, like crazy. There were, yeah, a few bird songs, because then they have certain symphony and they
Mhm.
last quite a way back. I realized that I actually have a planned bird painting from way back in 2018, but I never got to do. So I got out those notes that I made and the sketches I've made, and then started working on it.
Moment, you were not yet interested in exploring the idea of birds.
No, I actually have, like as I said, in 2018, but it's just that I completely forgot about it. It was in 2018 because I was planning to apply for this residency, which was conservation related. And
Mhm.
2018 was the year of the birds, but no, I did the entire uh, researching for a concept, but I didn't end up pursuing it. And then I just thought, like, now having had a relationship with the birds, I mean, relationship in a sense that it it brought into mind like this invisible world that you can only experience in a certain area, like in a remote area, like Bataan.
X and also
ZZYZX,
yeah.
yeah, ZZYZX. With ZZYZX, because I lived in Malate, I moved there. I moved to Malate in 2000, late 2019, and I started to fall in love with the place because it was messy, it was dirty, it was real Manila. I've always lived in Makati, but it always felt so, I don't know. I mean, at first it was nice, but then later on, it's just like, oh yeah, it's the same old thing every day. But Manila is different. There's a lot of craziness that goes on. So from there, tried visiting a few girly bars and whatnot, and then ZZX always stood out for me because I remember going, like researching about the girly bars in Malate, and then there's actually sex pat blogs. So they have a list of the notorious clubs that are there. So the most notorious would be LA Manila Bar Cafe, because that's where the cheapest sex could be found, and the second one would be ZZX. And ZZX was along Adriatico Circuit. From the word ZZX, it actually is a town um, in a nature conservation site in California.
Also talk about another interesting piece of trivia about the bird singing competition in Indonesia. How
Oh
did
yeah.
you come across?
Well, because I did a panel first. I mean, if you go to the exhibit, there's three falling bird panels. The one on the right most is the one that is about like the birds in the Pacific, and then the one on the left, birds from Philippines, and then the one in the middle would be the one you're referring to, the birds from Indonesia. And I don't know, I decided on Indonesia because I felt like it was near enough Philippines. There's a similar climate, similar political climate as well, and they also are, geologically they're also fragmented, meaning they're separated. I think it's 11,000 islands or something. For the Philippines, there's
Yeah.
7,000.
Mhm.
And then yeah, so while I was doing that research from the birds that are there, like Philippines, they have a very large biodiversity, but the birds there are more directly impacted by actual trade. Because we have a saying that goes, a man is considered to be a real man if he has a house, a wife, a horse, a keris, which is a dagger, and the bird. Snippet I read about the birds being taught the prayers. So I guess they put the prayer on repeat. So then when they're not praying, then they have the bird chanting for them.
About the birds in the Pacific that you were you were researching about in particular, or why did
Yeah,
you decide on?
they were the ones that were highlighted in the Bird of the Year, because in the Pacific there's all these tiny islands. Unlike Philippines and Indonesia, these islands don't have such a huge population. There, some are even uninhabited. But then prior, sailors, they went with their ships, and of course with the ships came the rats and the cats, and now the rats, those animals, are eating up all these birds who are not used to having them around. So that's what's happening, and it's hard to rescue these species because it's hard to get to the islands in the first place and hard to get supplies there. So it's a very expensive, work just to conserve them.
Also, you want to specifically say about the birds from the Philippines?
Oh, they're really beautiful. It was so interesting. There were so many colors that each region had its own, has its own list of birds. And most of them are very low in number. We don't know, apart from people who really do research on birds and are bird enthusiasts, not a lot of us know what exists out there. I mean, all we see is the bulbul, right? Or the dove, sorry, no, the pigeon, and that's it. But when I did my research on there, there's actually so much more.
You mentioned that the orientation is that the birds were falling, but some people mistakenly thought it was upside down, and maybe you wouldn't have minded if they were going upward. Can you talk a little bit about that?
No, I was surprised about it because, like, when I entered the exhibit, and of course it was the delivery guy who propped it the way they would see it, and they propped like 4 paintings upside down, including the deer painting. And for me, that really interested me. I mean, I've had a work of a head of a dog before, and then the head was with its was downwards because it was a portrait of a dead dog. And then I hid it for several months. I turned it on its back, and when I saw it again, I put it landscape view. So now it's the head of a dog that looks angry and not dead. And I like that, that when you shift something, your entire perspective about it changes as well. So with the birds, that reminded me of that instance. Maybe they felt it more proper for them to be up as if they're flying towards the sky. And metaphorically, that's very it's very interesting.
On to the other paintings, since we're still on the subject of the birds. I wanted to talk about the installation of crows.
The crows.
And
the crows. I cried so much about the crows. This was a huge stress. It's my first time. Like, okay, let me just talk about how it was made. So, had him oversaw design, and then had him 3D printed, and then the printer said, "Oh, we'd have to print it in 4 parts." And I'm like, so that they could print it properly with the 3D printer. And so I agreed, but then when they finished, it arrived to me in 4 different parts as well. And I was like, and I joked them, like, it's like ordering a pizza, except all the ingredients came apart, I have to put them together. So that one I did learn all about spray painting. A friend of mine said, like, just bring it to like a automotive, like a car shop, maybe they can spray paint it for you. And I'm like, no, the color of blue I want is very specific. You won't find it anywhere.
Or installation. And is this somehow related to, I know that you have an engineering background.
Yeah, I do. But it's not as like it's not like actually being in the field. I graduated as an industrial engineer, so it's more of like business oriented. But the only class that I was really interested in was the class where we had to be in a workshop. I actually like welding. I like welding and and woodwork. But that was years ago. But once I'm back in Philippines, I'm definitely gonna get more tools and whatnot. Sculpture is my main, what do you call that? Frustration. I really want to do it. That's what I intend to learn next.
About the video where you were wearing a green suit.
Yeah.